An important scene of Chapter 19 of The Mandalorian took place next to Umate, the tallest mountain on Coruscant and the only piece of the planet that isn't completely covered up by the city. It has a long and interesting history in Star Wars that I want to cover today, but I also want to talk about the mountain peak's significance to the rest of the story in The Mandalorian. Monument Plaza, where the mountain peak is located, was first seen in a 1995 drawing by Ralph McQuarrie. He created it for the illustrated Star Wars universe, basing it off of descriptions of the city planet by Kevin J. Anderson, who wrote several books in Star Wars Legends. Coruscant, or at least a planet similar to it, was first planned to appear in Return of the Jedi. It was named in Timothy Zahn's book Heir to the Empire, and the city's lore grew from there. Coruscant and Monument Plaza first appeared on screen in the special edition of Return of the Jedi, showing a celebration after the death of the Emperor. It next appeared in the Clone Wars, fittingly in an episode about Mandalorians. Duchess Satine Kryze, sister of Bo-Katan, meets up with Obi-Wan there while she avoids assassination at the hands of Death Watch, the extremist group Bo-Katan was part of at the time. The Peak of Umate is once again prominently featured in that episode and its other Clone Wars appearances. But probably its most important story moment so far comes from the High Republic book Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule. I mentioned this in my review for the episode, but hundreds of years before the events of The Mandalorian, the Republic faces its first major threat since the Sith Wars. The Chancellor of the time, Lina Soh, visits Monument Plaza and the Peak of Umate to remind herself of its significance. There was nothing so big it could not be swallowed up, nothing so strong it could not be humbled, nothing so tall it could not be made small, not a mountain and not the Republic. Just because the mountain has always been on the planet does not mean it's unconquerable. Just because the Republic has maintained peace and power for 800 years does not mean it will never end. We can say that for so many things in Star Wars. The fall of Mandalore, the defeat of the Empire, especially considering Palpatine's overconfidence, the eventual defeat of the Sith, lots of big picture things, but I think it has a personal meaning as well. Elia Kane might look at that mountain and think that just because the New Republic beat the Empire at Endor and Jakku doesn't mean the Imperial remnant can't come back to take their revenge. She might see the mountain as inspiration. For Bo-Katan and Dr. Pershing, I think it represents the threat of regression. Both of them became better versions of themselves. Let's start with Pershing, since he actually sees and tries to touch the mountain. He worked for the Empire, and I do believe him when he says he originally had good intentions that were twisted. He always seemed to want to keep Grogu safe, but he was also very excited to have Grogu in his possession for his cloning experiments, so I don't think he was fully a good dude trapped in a bad situation. Either way, when we see him in Chapter 19, I do think he was fully on board with helping the New Republic any way he could. He wanted to be better, at first. But being a better person isn't just a switch you can flip. There will always be temptations to fall back into your old ways. You'll always feel that itch to keep going. Elia Kane is able to manipulate those feelings, and the better person he was becoming was swallowed up by his past, and he paid the price for it. In Bo-Katan's case, like I said, she used to be a member of Death Watch. She used to fight against her own sister, but we saw her reject those ideals by the end of the Clone Wars, and she was on a genuinely good and noble path in Star Wars Rebels. But she tried being good, and it didn't work out. It resulted in the destruction of her home, twice. I think Star Wars Rebels showed her climb that mountain of self-improvement and reach the summit, but she can be knocked back down. She can be swallowed up by her past if she allows it. She has been welcomed with open arms into the Children of the Watch, which surely has connections back to Death Watch, and we have no idea what she will do with that. She could use her power and influence for good to maybe change how they operate, or she could fall back into her old selfish ways, using her power and knowledge selfishly. I see her at a crossroads, and either choice would make complete sense to me, which I see as a sign of a very compelling character. Chapter 19 was a divisive one, taking a break from the primary Mandalorian storyline to give the focus to the struggles of the New Republic and some of the threats it faces both from without and within. I saw some people cry filler, which is a word I hear thrown around so often now that it's lost all meaning to me. I think what people really mean when they say that is, I didn't like the episode, which is fine. But I think it's good to see the failings of the New Republic from the perspective of the core worlds. It's good to see the rich and powerful at the center of the galaxy laughing at the plight of the Outer Rim where the rest of the series takes place. It's gonna add more context to Carson Teva's arguments that people need to pay attention whenever that happens. With every season, this series has grown in scope, starting with a personal story that has evolved into a galactic story. But even as it grows, it's able to present significant themes and ideas and symbols at the heart of Coruscant, for example, that are relevant to the main characters way out in the Outer Rim who are struggling to survive and find their place. At least, that's what I see. It's all subjective. What do you think of Umate and what we were shown in The Mandalorian Chapter 19? Let me know in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel to keep up with all our Mandalorian Season 3 coverage, and consider checking out our Patreon page where we're releasing video reactions and audio commentaries for every new episode. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.